American Express Open Business Cards from American Express can help cover the big purchases you need to make when you need to make them. Find out how American Express Open Cards and Services can help prepare you for growth at open.com.
I'm Eric Karabell. In the latest fantasy-focused baseball podcast, Tristan Cockroft and I discuss what was learned from the baseball playoffs for fantasy purposes, prospects on display at Arizona Fall League who look great, plus many, many hash browns to answer.
This is Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Tonight, Dwayne Wade is going back to Miami for the first time wearing a visiting uniform. We'll get the perspective from Dan Batard a little later on the show. It's the Browns and the Ravens tonight. The Browns will be trying to seek starting 0-10. Yeah. Does that get you excited?
No, it doesn't.
Here was Nick Saban when being asked about the election.
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't even know yesterday was election day.
There's no way I believe he didn't know it was election day. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, that's really holed up.
Now, here's Mike and Mike.
One of many topics of conversation on a busy Thursday with us on Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You heard I mentioned Dan Batard will join us. He'll be on in this hour in Miami with Dwayne Wade coming back home. But here he is now. This is, we hope he feels, his home away from home. Booger McFarland is here to talk sports with us for the hour. Good morning, Booger.
Always enjoy being with you guys. You know, normally me and Golic kind of exchange texts over the weekend.
Right.
You know, just to kind of get the process started. So it's always good to be in contact with you, Greeny.
Booger texted me after I made the mistake that we talked about this week when Danny Cannell throws his line in the water.
Don't bite.
And trolls for that, and I was the big fish on the hook. Yeah, Booger texts me and says, dude, you can't do it. You can't bite on that. And I'm like, I did. I was a hungry fish searching it out.
That's what I picture, Danny. I'm not a fisherman, but I can see him going, oh, I got a big one.
Yeah.
I got a big one. It's Golic this time. Okay, so Booger is here very quickly because I promised it, and we'll all get a smile on our face. I gave this unsolicited advice to Blake Griffin, who's going back to play in Oklahoma City tomorrow night, where he went to college, where he grew up, and people will speculate like crazy about his future. And I said, he should say what Jim Harbaugh always says. I only talk about the job I have done. Mm-hmm. And that way there's no room for misinterpretation. There's no room for parsing his words or anything. And because I referenced Harbaugh, I thought we could all just put a smile on our face. Jim Harbaugh, because he is Jim Harbaugh, was talking about his favorite character, and that character is SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob. Okay. SpongeBob. I love his attitude. He's got the he attacks each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. I mean, try to model my behavior. I mean, we all should. I mean, what a great employee he is. I mean, he is a go-getter. He's always got a bounce in his step. He's always he's got pizzazz. He puts his heart and soul into making those Krabby Patties. I think he's awesome.
I mean, listen, how are we even shocked anymore? Now, I'm a fan of the show. I'm a fan of, Patrick Starr and Mr. Krabs and all that. And who are some of the other ones? Squidward tentacles and all that. I like the show.
Was that show even on when you were a kid?
No.
Right.
When my kids were
kids.
Golic was a kid. I Love Lucy was on. Golic is he's very old.
My kids left the room and I stayed in.
Yeah, watched that one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Sandy Cheeks, and
Yeah, my kids liked SpongeBob also, and I liked it too. I went through I watched all my kids' favorite shows with them. They were never as into SpongeBob. Like, I was much more familiar with things like Hannah Montana, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
The Wiggles.
That's So Brave. Well, the Wiggles is when they were really small.
Really little, yeah.
And all of that. So anyway, I just thought we'd all enjoy hearing a little bit from Jim Harbaugh. Back to reality. We were talking earlier this morning. Mark Schlereth was in the chair you're sitting in now, Booger, and we were talking about whether coaches on a day like yesterday would gather their players together and let everyone kind of talk openly about their feelings. We've heard Stan Van Gundy and Steve Kerr and many others being very open about the way they feel about the outcome of the election the other night. And you tweeted a response to our conversation while it was going on. Even better. Now you're sitting here. What were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are really simple, especially when you look at the NBA, you look at NFL, and you look at Major League Baseball. Those are three leagues that are comprised largely of African Americans and minorities. And when you talk about human people and just human characteristics and human personalities, and I think some of the things that were said during the election process were offensive to African Americans and offensive to minorities and offensive to women. And I think when you walk in that room yesterday, whatever coach you are, whatever league you're in, if you're in one of those leagues and your team is there, you have to address the elephant in the room. Everyone knows what the elephant in the room is. And the job of a coach or a president or a CEO is to understand the pulse of their team, their organization, understand what's going on. You always hear Herm Edwards talk about, I didn't coach from upstairs, I coached in the locker room. So you have to go in the locker room and understand what your players are discussing, understand what your players are talking about, because ultimately that's going to translate and relate to what goes on the field. So I think the coach has to address it, because there are always going to be different views in that locker room, especially when you have whites, blacks, people that come from different backgrounds, and you don't want that to affect your job, your profession. So what do? You address the elephant in the room. You say, guys, you know what? It really doesn't matter who won. We can't control that. As long as you voted and did your job, that's all you can do. Let's not let the opinion that we all get to have affect how we work. Regardless of whether I disagree with Golic or I disagree with Greeny, whatever I disagree with, we still have to come together and do our job. But you have to address it. And you heard Steve Kerr talk about it, because those are real life issues. When you walk in there and your star players are down, they have their head down, or Steph Curry's not himself, or somebody in the NFL is not themselves. Coaches understand the pulse. They know what's going on. So you got to address it, because you don't want that to linger throughout the week. And in a very divisive time like this, in a divisive election, you have to make sure that you understand the pulse. And you saw the protests last night. You saw everything that's going on. This country is divided more than ever now. It's divided. And sports are just a microcosm of what goes on outside. That's why I always think it's very funny when, the company we work for are different places. Stay away from religion, stay away from politics. Well, you're saying stay away from life, because it's the life we live every day. And if you think that you can wake up yesterday and life goes on as normal, you're mistaken. I don't care who you are. And so I think the coaches have to address it, and they have to get a pulse of their team, of their business, of their organization, because if you're not, you're doing that team or business a disservice.
I agree it has to be brought up, but the reality of the situation, especially in football, because what day is after Election Day? Install day.
Wednesday.
So they're
long day.
They're going to bring it up, but they're also going to say, but let's not affect our workplace.
Yep.
Okay, this happened. We all have to deal with it. And you can deal with it, when you guys are together in a locker room. But when, as I said earlier, when you're in the meeting room, when you're doing a walkthrough, when you're in the weight room, when you're on the practice field, we got to get ready to do our
Where's
job.
your focus at?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a time to do your job, but
Right.
then I think, Booger, what you're saying is that you also have to set aside time to deal with
Can't act
the
like
issues.
It didn't happen.
Right.
Well, and so that brings me to the person who acted like it didn't happen. So now we go to a college campus, and you have Nick Saban, at least publicly, saying he didn't even know it had been Election Day. Now, neither Mike nor I believe that. You're laughing. I don't know.
I don't believe it either. But
Yeah.
it goes.
But would that suggest that he did not bring this up with his players? Right? I mean, a college is a place, as I've said many times on this program, for spiritual awakening and an understanding of the world that you live in and all sorts of other things that all of us who weren't football players in college got the opportunity to do on college campuses. And whether it's, standing up for things you believe in or whatever it is, that's part of the college experience. These guys are football players, and I get that, and they have a quote-unquote job to do, even if they're student athletes.
Yeah, don't go there.
Let me not go there. The point is, does this suggest to you think that Saban did not bring this up with his players? He just walked in on Wednesday and said, all right, guys, let's get to work.
Absolutely, because here's the difference between professional sports and amateur sports, and I use the quotation marks amateur sports, is that in amateur sports I can dictate and tell you what to do because the authority belongs to me, the head coach. All right? We're not going to discuss it. You don't have a say-so. Your job is to go to school, get an education. Professional sports, you and I have kids going to the same school. You and I have mortgages with the same company. We go to the same bank. So we're more equals. And in some cases, the NFL player or the professional athlete is a step above the coach because they're making more money. Okay, when you're on the collegiate level, Nick Saban's making $7-8 million a year. These kids are whatever they're getting from their scholarship. So he's dictating to them. His job is to teach and make sure that they get an education and become the best football players they can be. So I have no doubt he did not bring it up. Now, when it was brought up was when those players talked to their parents. When those players were in the locker room talking to each other. People talk. This is a society where everyone is going to talk. And if you're a coach, if you're Nick Saban, if it ever gets to the point where you hear it in the locker room, you have to address it. And maybe he did. However, I don't think he did. But I also think that Nick Saban knew it was Election Day. But you'd have to be under a rock not to know it was Election Day.
But also we keep hearing how coaches want to keep saying they're teachers, and some of us kind of, okay, some may be, but scoff at that. Wouldn't this be one of the best teaching moments? You know what all the players on that team can do? Vote.
Coach. Yeah.
They can vote. I mean, wouldn't because I agree in the pro ranks you're on an even level. You're all dealing with mortgages and and all that. But not in college. You got a guy making $8 million. You got 18 to 22-year-olds who can vote. I mean, almost you look at it and it's early in the week.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday, and even talk about a Monday before you vote on Tuesday about kind of an opportunity to teach instead of just basically ignoring the entire situation. I don't know. To me, if you want to say you're a coach and you're a teacher, that to me is almost one of the most teachable moments out there, is discussing something like that.
I would have loved to have been a reporter and asked the kids, did they vote? Because that's something that everyone who's registered has the right to do. So to me, that would have been a more apropos question. Hey, did you guys vote? You don't have to tell me your affiliation or who you voted for. But if Saban is saying that, well, my kids aren't allowed to vote, then there's an entirely different issue.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure he didn't.
I'm sure he's not saying.
You're dealing with absentee votes for kids that from different.
Many of them come from different states.
Correct.
Exactly right. So it's not
most
as
of
easy as walking out. Yeah.
You would think for the overwhelming majority also of college athletes, this would have been the first presidential election in which they could vote. I guess some of them could be 22.
But for the most part, you're right.
For the most part, it's going to be their first election, and that's an important thing. I remember mine. I'm sure you guys remember yours. I mean, it's an important thing. I know that we sat at the dinner table in my house last night. My kids are 16 and 13, and we talked for probably the longest conversation we have had as a family in a long time. Was my family last night just sitting and talking about this. One other thing I want to ask you guys about, Mike, because we sometimes. And look, I'm only observing this from the outside, but I feel like my observation, and we heard Mark Schlereth talking with great passion, and I thought beautifully about it this morning, was that inside a locker room is a place where there really is, for the most part, equality, where guys will just sit together and they'll hold hands and raise a hand together, and all of the differences that we sometimes, that were clearly at being discussed so much during this election, are put aside or, in fact, celebrated. Mark said it a lot better than I'm saying it. So everyone respects everyone's right to their opinion.
Yes.
Now, what happens if someone takes that opinion and instead of just stating it, puts it in an incendiary way? I'm reading the story. Did you guys see what Jake Arrieta tweeted?
No.
So Jake Arrieta, superstar pitcher of the Chicago Cubs. Right. Now, their season has just ended. They won't all be together again now until spring training. But Jake Arrieta, I just lost it. Here it is. Jake Arrieta tweeted, "Time for Hollywood to pony up and head for the border. Hashtag I'll help you pack. Hashtag beat it." All right, that's Jake Arrieta tweeting. It's got 22,000 retweets and 43.7 thousand likes. That's something that it's an incendiary way of putting it. It is one thing to say, hey, I'm disappointed with the results, or I'm happy with the results. I support the new president. I don't support, whatever the case is.
Right.
It's another thing entirely to put it in the terms in which he put it. Is that something that you would imagine? Now, again, his team isn't coming back together again for a long time, but is that something that you think will have to be addressed by others if this was a football player in the locker room?
Well, if you did it in the locker room, if it was, because you're right.
That's Twitter. That's everywhere.
The big thing there is he's not going in a clubhouse for a long time.
Right, February.
So put this in an NBA context or an NFL context, if somebody did something, that was an incendiary type of a tweet. Yeah, especially – the big thing would be if people in the same locker room vehemently disagree with it. That's where you get – if everybody's, giving them a harumph and agreeing and saying, you're right, okay, you got no issues. It's when you have other views that say, well, wait a minute, you said that, and boy, the way you said it, I disagree with you, and that – so, yeah, I mean, that – but these guys are – remember, we're adults, so you're supposed to be able to handle it as adults. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but yes, especially if there is a other side of the view – It's got to be talked about.
Here's the one thing I'll say. Set politics to the side, policy and NAFTA and all these different things. Yeah. Set all those things to the side. This country is a country about equality, and it's about fairness and about how you treat people. And where I have a disconnect is when if you get inside the locker room and we're just talking about how you treat people, whether they're males, they're females, how you appreciate them, how you talk to them, how you lift them up. we get on all these networks and we talk about bullying, we talk about domestic violence, we talk about all these different things. Those are issues in life. And some of the issues that were in this election were issues in life. And I don't care, whatever politics you want to believe in, go ahead.
Right.
My biggest issue, and I think the biggest issue among people in general, is about how you treat people, how you talk to people, how you look at people. Because at the end of the day, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or third party, we're all people, and we all deserve to be treated like Americans. And I think when you look at some of the feelings inside the locker room, I wouldn't care what politics you believe in, but I would care what people characteristics you believe in, what personalities you believe in, how you believe that my daughter and your daughter and your daughter should be treated. And I think that goes beyond politics. That's the American way of life, people. Like, that has nothing to do with politics. How you respect and treat people, that ain't politics. And for people that want to say, well, that's part of politics, baloney. That's not. That's just the American way of life. When you live in this country, you deserve to be treated a certain way.
No, listen, I agree with that. Now, there are certainly other factors that come into play.
Exactly.
On how your life is and how it's going with the current administration. And do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you want to change? Do you not want to change?
But those are the politics of it, though.
Exactly right.
Right.
To your point, completely agree. You know, treat others like you want to be treated.
Exactly.
Isn't that the golden rule that we always have? And certainly that's what we like to respect in a locker room where you and I spent most of our lives. Is we may differ in views, but, you know, let's be alike in how we want to treat people and treat other people. And as I said, there isn't a locker room that's ever been where everybody's gotten along. There's always some people that don't get along. They just don't see eye to eye on things. That's normal. That's the way it goes. Just like here in a break room here at ESPN, you get 10 people in there. Not everybody's going to agree on everything. It's the same way in locker rooms.
Of course. I guess what I'm saying is it is obviously one thing for people to have you and I can sit here. We can have voted for a different candidate. We can have a different view, whether we're happy or disappointed with the result of the election. It's another thing, for lack of a better word, like when the Jets lose, a lot of people like to rub my face in it, right? People will tweet me like, oh, the Jets stink. And look, it's just a football game.
Right.
It's nothing. Yeah. Something like this, obviously, is something that is much more personal and much more emotional for a lot of people.
People take it personal.
Yeah.
That's the biggest key within
Of course, this is something you take personal. This is not a football game that I didn't participate in. Right? At the end of the day, I root for the Jets, but whether they won or lost, it doesn't impact my life on any concrete level. This stuff does. This stuff does matter. This stuff has cut to the core of a lot of people's feelings about living in this country and whatever it is. So regardless of which, I have total respect for everyone, regardless of whom you voted for and whatever you may feel. But I think when you start going to the place where you start now rubbing people, your candidate would get out of that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, it's those people that said, I'm going to leave if he's voted in, and now you're saying, okay, you got voted, go ahead and leave.
Right. And I get it. I understand. The discussion has been incendiary on all sides for a long time. And there isn't any question that we all need to take a step back now this thing is over and take a look at ourselves and take a look at how we conduct ourselves through issues, through elections and other significant times. I guess my point is, if you're a player in a locker room and one of the players tweeted that, is that a complication? Is that all of a sudden something that has to be, to use your term, Booger, to get the eleif in the room addressed?
You're men in that room.
Or is it possibly going to bubble over?
No, you're men in that room. So if we're in the same locker room and you said something that I vehemently disagree with and I want to bring it up, listen, we're adults. You're going to come in the locker room and we would talk about it.
I cannot believe his name just Riley Cooper is another example that I'm thinking of where something like that happened, right? Riley Cooper and in the locker room, and that was something you couldn't just say, well,
Coach is going to address it.
It has to be addressed.
Players have to address it. Yeah.
Coach will probably come in and say, guys, everybody come in and close the door. And he'll say it because everybody knows what happened. But what you have to do is get it out there, and everybody can take a deep breath. Now let's discuss it. And so to your point, Greeny, that tweet, if the Cubs were in season, knowing Joe Madden the way I do, Joe Madden likes to keep things light. He's open. He'll probably come in. If he doesn't have a conversation with Jake himself, he may get in front of the team. Hey, guys, this is a divisive time. Let's make sure we respect each other. Right. He may even say that. But in no way, shape, or form can you ignore that, because the thing a coach doesn't want to do, or a president or a CEO, you cannot allow the temperature in your room or your business to get into the playing field or the workplace in a negative manner.
All right, Mike and Mike, Booger McFarland is here. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Dan Lebitard will join us from Miami in just a little bit on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Dwayne Wade will play in Miami as a visitor tonight for the first time, which I'm sure will be a bit of a shock for all of the fans there. We'll get Dan's thoughts on that. We got lots of college football to get to with Booger in our studio. And with that thought in mind, once again, Golic, it is time for our winning word of the day. Now, we want the word to be simple. Our friends at AutoZone have allowed us to bring a winner a day every single day. We've had 8 winners so far. And by the way, 4 of them men, 4 of them women. We're thrilled to be bringing everybody with a guest with us to Tampa Bay for the College Football Championship. Maybe we'll see Booger down there.
I'll be there, yes.
Play a little golf down there.
That's already set up.
That's a lock. And we're all looking forward to that.
He's the one setting it all up.
And so all you need to do is know the winning word of the day and then enter it the 2 ways Golic is going to give you. Now, Brooksy, our producer, is an idiot, and as a consequence, we told him don't make the word confusing, and he's gotten kind of full of himself because we've done very well with this contest. The entries numbers are up and all that, so now he's just trying to get cute with us, and so today's word is confusing.
Yes, it is.
I don't mean that figuratively. I mean it literally. Yeah. The word of the day is confusing. CONFUSING. Please do not hold Brooksy's idiocy against us by not entering this word, despite its stupidity.
Oh, my God.
The word is confusing.
Yes.
And here are the 2 ways to enter it.
Yeah. And this really, the fun we're having is cool, but this is the important part. If you enter in any other way than these 2 ways, you won't be entered, and you won't be like the names of the people we're getting they're giving you that are winning this trip. So take this word, which is confusing, actually confusing, and text it to 777-000, and you can enter it online at mikesroadtothecfp.com. Again, take the word that we're giving you, these 2 ways, and you can enter both ways. Text the word to 777-000 or enter it online at mikesroadtothecfp.com, and we really hope to be traveling with you to Tampa Bay.
Absolutely right, where we'll play golf with Booger and watch Alabama beat someone for the national championship. We'll talk college football and more as we continue. Right now, a word from AutoZone. Golic, because at AutoZone, they're doing everything they can to put you in your zone, whether that's getting you the right part or giving you the helpful advice you need. They'll always help you get there.
Well, and as we just gave you the word for the second time this morning, our friends at AutoZone are helping you get on the road with us to the national championship game. Just be listening and watching Mike and Mike now through November 15th for your chance to win Mike and Mike at the College Football Playoff Sweepstakes presented by AutoZone. We really want to thank our friends at AutoZone. They're always going to help you get there. With thousands of parts in stock and helpful people to guide you, they've got everything you need to tackle your auto maintenance and repair projects with confidence. Get in the zone. AutoZone. Visit mikesroadtothecfp.com for the official rules. That's mikesroadtothecfp.com. We really hope we're traveling with and see you at the national championship game. We're back after this on Mike and Mike.
Green, front court left. Waits for Clay. Finds Clay. He's open. He'll fire for 3. Got another one! Clay Thompson on an 18-point quarter. And now Rick Carlisle's going to call another timeout. 4:03 to go in the quarter. And Clay Thompson is 7 for 7. 4 of 4 outside the arc. He has 18 of the 23.
And that was sort of the way the night went for the Golden State Warriors. Feels like there are going to be a lot of those. 95-7 the game, the play-by-play. 4 different Warriors made at least 4 threes in their win last night. They beat Dallas easily. Elsewhere, how about the Rockets beating the Spurs on the road? 101-99, and James Harden, who's going to put up huge numbers playing for Mike D'Antoni, had his 10th career triple-double. Finally, college football tonight on ESPN and on ESPN Radio. 7:30 Eastern for number 17 North Carolina at Duke. And SportsCenter is brought to you by 1-800-Flowers.
Trying to make up for another weekend spent in your football lair. Surprise her with 1-800-Flowers.com bouquet to order 36 stunning autumn roses for just $36. What you need to do is go to 1-800-Flowers.com. on the radio icon. Click on it, enter the code Mike. Make sure you do it soon. The offer ends tomorrow.
All right, Booger McFarland is here today. He's in our studio. A lot of people are really appreciating some of the things you've said. Joe tweets, well said, Booger. We're all Americans, no matter your or the other person's politics. Live by the golden rule. A lot of nice reaction there. Dan Le Batard joins us now. You all know Dan, of course. His show follows us coast to coast here on ESPN Radio. He's obviously weighed down by Stugatz, but he does the best that he can every single morning, and then hosting Highly Questionable in the afternoons as well. Good morning, Dan Le Batard.
Hello, you've got it wrong, though. I'm the one that adds the weight. Stugatz carries me toward the surface of the sun. When we soar because of the secret sauce that is the mighty Stugatz.
Well, let me tell you, if that's the case, what a secret sauce that is.
No one is searching for the secret. Dan, before we get to what we originally wanted to have you on to talk about, which is Dwayne Wade returning tonight to Miami, we know you're very close to Stan Van Gundy, and Stan was one of the many and most outspoken people in the NBA yesterday, discussing the emotions that a lot of people in that league feel about the result of the election the other day and how that figures to reverberate through locker rooms and other places inside sports. I'm always curious to hear your perspective on things like that.
Well, beyond what Stan Van Gundy said yesterday, and I've been talking to him about this for a while now because this has led to some interesting locker room dynamics, as has the entire Colin Kaepernick situation. Stan is, to use his words, embarrassed and ashamed that he didn't do what he did yesterday sooner. He is really hurting about the idea that he didn't use the power of the platform to do what he did yesterday back when it could have made some kind of difference. So he didn't feel like he went far enough soon enough, and so he's really been, I know a lot of people are talking about the race element of this, but he's got daughters, and they've taught him things about what it's like to be a woman in America, and the idea that, the misogyny of the idea that somehow our presidential candidate a month before the election can have a scandal like that misogynistic, is something that really, hurt him beyond just what's happening in his locker room.
Yeah, no doubt Stan did not hold back on his thought process. On to, our world of sports and Dwayne Wade coming back to Miami. First, before we get to the crowd reaction, what of the relationship or lack thereof of he and Pat Riley, of which they have not spoken since he has been gone? Do you think that's something that will at some point be smoothed over or will just remain as it is, which is none?
Well, it's interesting because Dwayne has bent over backwards to say, while kind of slicing cuts at Pat Riley, that he understands Pat Riley, understands that he's stubborn, understands that if you're not with him, you're against him, that he'll always love Pat Riley. So it's just been interesting to watch the both of them really try and navigate some of this in spin mode since it's happened, because they're both trying to manipulate public perception on a breakup that didn't have to happen, right? If the Miami Heat wanted to keep Dwayne Wade, they would have. And if Dwayne Wade wanted to stay here, he would have. But because they both deemed that they should break up and that the relationship was over for a variety of different reasons, everything they've said since then has been spin in the public so that there isn't too much blame. I don't know that there's any good way to do what they did. So once you're going to break up, I guess this is the best way to do it.
Generally speaking, Dan, which side do the fans in South Florida agree with? Which side are they on? Are they on Dwayne's side or Riley's side?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and I don't know that I can answer it because I think people are split, There's a lot of belief in Pat Riley because of everything that he did here, but the emotion of Dwayne Wade, when he looked, here's where I would go with that one, because it's a difficult question. When you listen to Dwayne, and this is why the spin of this is so important, when you listen to Dwayne and he feels disrespected, that's when you lose the fans, because they can't really get their head around the idea of $40 million offer that the Heat made being a sign of disrespect. But when you listen to Dwayne and he sounds hurt, that's when he hits him in the heart. When he sounds hurt, when he sounds remorseful, when he sounds like, man, I didn't want to leave there. I really didn't want to leave. That's when the conversation changes, and it's why the spin on this has been so interesting to hear both of them go at it, because they're both very smart. They're both businessmen. They both understand. And so it's real difficult to answer that question. It sort of depends on what Wade is saying. They'll be on Wade's side tonight if for whatever reason during the tribute he starts crying because he was hurt by this. There's no questioning that.
Dan, Booger here. So when you say that they're going to be on his side, do you think that the fan reaction tonight is going to be overwhelmingly in favor of him, or do you think that they're still going to decide and side with Pat Riley and that he's always right as far as building that team?
Well, I think in what will reveal itself tonight, I don't think you'll hear of a bad word about Dwayne Wade tonight. I don't think there will be a bad feeling toward Dwayne Wade this evening. He will be embraced fully, and I dare say that you really have a situation here where you might, if Dwayne Wade does what he did so much for the Miami Heat, if he beats the Miami Heat on a buzzer beater, you have a very real possibility that everyone will stand and cheer that. It'll take them a moment, but, to realize what has happened after they get a little bit crushed by having lost the game. But if Dwayne Wade in that building were to beat the Miami Heat on a late shot, my guess is he will get a standing ovation for that. And my guess is you haven't seen that a lot in your lifetime.
And final thought, Dan, I guess there isn't a definitive answer to this question, but Mike and I were kicking it around a little earlier. And you've lived there all your life. Is Dwayne Wade the greatest player in South Florida professional sports history?
Yes.
He is. He's generally considered number one?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I say that. I know I answered your question a little bit too quickly. But, I mean, it's either Marino or him. And by virtue of winning 3 championships and by virtue of putting together the most interesting team in the history of South Florida sports, by virtue of seeing him grow up from somebody who, was getting student loans to pay for his child's diapers at Marquette to a national and an international icon who was bejeweled. Yeah, there's nobody who has had the impact and turning this from a football town, which it was during Marino, into a basketball town, which it became because of Dwayne Wade. Yeah, that's where Dwayne Wade took the mantle from Marino.
So, Dan, in sports, the years are fleeting, and not long ago, Miami had the big 3 there, and they're winning a couple of championships and going to the finals every year, to now nobody from that big 3 is on the team anymore. So 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, when somebody comes up and you say, hey, Dan, how do you remember the big 3 in Miami? What will be your answer?
The most interesting time in sports in the history of South Florida. Before that, it was those University of Miami football teams that were polarizing. Us against the world is something that gets thrown out a lot in sports. Silly, but that was something. Miami, the reason that was the most interesting team in the history of South Florida sports, beyond the glamour and the glitz of it, is because of how it felt. It felt like everyone disliked that team, and it felt like ultimately that team won people over. However it is that happened. So yeah, that was there will never. I don't know if there'll ever be a time like that again in South Florida sports, which is one of the reasons that it hurts so much to watch that Heat team now when you've got Tyler Johnson and Hassan Whiteside.
Dan Le Batard getting set for his show. Again, follows us every single day, coast to coast. Here was Stugotz, and then this afternoon with Highly Questionable. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
That's Dan Le Batard on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Choose Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gas for the best total engine protection you can get. I'm old enough to remember, as you are, the 72 Dolphins. And I don't really remember the 72 Dolphins, but I remember the group and some of those teams that came a little bit later. They had a lot of great players, but sort of no one that stands out. I mean, Greasy is a Hall of Famer.
They definitely had some big
Larry Zonka's in the Hall of Fame.
Some good times, but they didn't have, he got the championships and got to the promised land, every year.
The Dolphins I'm talking about won titles, though. I'm not talking about Marino. I'm talking about the 70s Dolphins that won back-to-back Super Bowls and went to 3 in a row. Bob Greasy, Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, Nick Bonacani, Manny Fernandez, on and on that list goes.
A lot of recognizable names there.
But what they didn't have was Marino. Right? They weren't, even though Greasy's in the Hall of Fame.
Greasy was a pretty big star.
He was, but he wasn't Dan Marino. I mean, when you heard Le Batard Batard say, yeah, it's either Wade or Marino. Marino won 0 championships. Greasy won 2 Super Bowls, and yet.
So is that
people
fair?
think of
Is that fair? Is it just that we're doing this because it's decades ago?
No, I think it's because Greasy was part of a really great team. I mean, that team I think is better remembered for their running backs and for the for the defense than it is for the quarterback play. Yeah. And he missed a lot of that season, right? I mean, Greasy, the unbeaten season, Earl Morrall played a lot of that season.
Right.
It's before my time, but one way or another, Wade going back to Miami tonight is interesting. All right, Booger is here. We'll go to college football next. Did the committee get it right, and how's this thing going to play out as we continue? Booger's got answers after this word from Dollar Shave Club. Guys, you know we love Dollar Shave Club. They've been with us for years. The shave is fantastic.
Yep, what you probably may not know is all the other amazing products that they have, stuff for your hair, your face, for everywhere to keep you feeling and looking fresh. If you are not a member and have never joined Dollar Shave Club, now's the time. You're going to get your first month of razors free. All you do is pay shipping. After that, it's only a few bucks to join today. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Mike. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Mike. We're back after this on Mike and Mike.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit Geico.
Mike and Mike, our Sports Center is brought to you by Goodyear. What does it take to be blimp-worthy in college football? Goodyear knows it's the hard work, the determination, and the grit they've seen from the blimp for more than 60 years. That's blimp-worthy. Goodyear, official sponsor of the college football playoff. Booger McFarland is in our studio. Speaking of college football, I haven't even gotten to it here with you yet this morning, Booger. Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4. The obvious choices were the ones the committee made this week with the unbeatens. Then you get to Ohio State, Louisville, and Wisconsin. How far down do you go on this list of teams that you could see realistically winding up amongst the 4 teams playing for the national championship?
I think when you get to Auburn at 9. Because I think when you look at them, there are 3 games remaining. They have Georgia, Alabama, A&M, and then the Iron Bowl against Alabama. You win those 3, you win the SEC West. You go play for an SEC title against a Florida or a Tennessee team that's not very good, in my opinion. Now Auburn has a clear path. If they just went out, now that A&M has lost, they have a clear path to the college football playoff.
Let me ask you one quick question on that, because I agree with you. If Auburn wins out and wins the SEC, I believe they will get in. Mm-hmm. That leaves you with the following question.
I already know where you're going.
Alabama, at that point, with 1 loss, let's say it's a close game.
Yeah.
They've been considered by everyone to be the best team in the country all year long. Would they get left out?
I think the conversation will come down to Alabama and depending on what Washington does, because Washington is largely considered the weakest of the undefeated team based on that non-conference schedule, which is a joke. And so I think then the committee would have to ask themselves, does the 0 at the end of your name and the conference championship mean more than the words that you use in your motto? We want the best team, the 4 best teams. And so in my opinion, if they want the 4 best teams, if Alabama loses a close game, there's no way you can convince me that Alabama isn't among the 4 best teams. To your point, Greeny. So I think you're going to have a very, very deep discussion in that room between the powers that be to say, okay, is the conference championship that Washington won, if they go on and go undefeated and win the conference championship, is that enough to supplant Alabama? I think Alabama is among the 4 best teams in the country right now. If they only lose 1 game, albeit a close game to Auburn, I don't know how you could keep them out, but you set a bad precedent when you have a Power 5 conference champion that's undefeated. And to me, that's when the committee will have the
so let's have some fun then.
That'll never happen. If Washington's undefeated, they're in. There's not a chance.
All right, well, but what if Ohio State?
Not a chance,
okay.
Not a chance.
Why, though? Why, just because they're undefeated?
Yes. Because they're undefeated. They are not getting left out of
undefeated.
Now they have the toughest remaining schedule of any undefeated team.
Correct.
They're going to have to do their work to get there.
Correct.
Beating SC and Washington State. No doubt about it. 2 teams that are ranked now. There is no chance on God's beautiful green earth that they're undefeated, win the Pac-12, and are not in the Final Four.
So would you say that that's all that matters? Being undefeated is all that matters?
It goes a long way. It goes a long way that they never lost in a Power 5 conference. Yes, it goes a long way. And it should go a long way.
It also goes a long ways talking about their non-conference schedule, which was hot garbage.
Okay, a couple of teams weren't. Yes, exactly right. You can point to SEC teams that play garbage teams last week as well.
That.
I mean, so don't give me that one.
But,
I mean, seriously.
But in Greeny's scenario, I'm just comparing them to Alabama. If Alabama loses to Auburn, Auburn wins the SEC. Now Auburn gets, I think, the automatic bid to the college football playoff. Now you have a one-loss Alabama against an undefeated Washington Pac-12 championship.
No chance.
How about if the Big Ten champion has one loss?
The Big
What
Ten.
if Ohio State wins the Big Ten?
The Big Ten is a tougher conference, so I think the Big Ten gets the nod automatically.
So a one-loss Ohio State with a Big Ten championship goes over a one-loss Alabama.
Yeah, it's the year.
I think so, yeah.
This year, the Big Ten's a tougher conference.
Yeah.
3 years ago, maybe it wasn't.
Correct. Based on what the committee is saying right now, I think they value the conferences, Big Ten and then SEC. I think the Pac-12 is near the bottom along with the Big 12. Yeah. I think the ACC is right in the middle.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
As far as the ranking, I'm not trying to say the Pac-12 is a power of the Power Five.
Right.
What I'm saying is there is no way the committee is leaving them out of the playoffs.
I'm not done.
As an undefeated winner.
What if Wisconsin wins the Big Ten?
Wow.
Yeah.
If Wisconsin wins the Big Ten, I think you have the same scenario that you do with Auburn. I think you have a two-loss team in a very tough conference that wins the Big Ten. I think you would have
ahead
to
of
put
a
them
one-loss Alabama. That's a two-loss Wisconsin. Now, by definition, they would have to have avenged one of their losses.
Correct.
Because they got to beat either Ohio State or Michigan to win the Big Ten title. I know that all these things aren't going to happen.
Correct.
One of them could. So
if it's the Big Ten, I would agree with you. The Big Ten, based on what the committee has shown us right now, where Michigan is in the rankings, they value, in my opinion, the Big Ten more. So the Big Ten, in my opinion, if it's a two-loss Wisconsin team, I think they will get in over a one-loss Alabama non-conference champion.
Golic, I will give you this. You want the 8 teams? You want an 8-team playoff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The best way that will happen is if Alabama loses one game and winds up out.
Because then you can go to the Power 5 are in conference champs and then do 3 at large.
Because even I, who do not support it, expanding this thing, I don't believe the best team in the country last year played in the Final Four. I thought the best team was Ohio State. They didn't play like it all year. I'm not suggesting they should have gotten in, but the best team did not wind up getting in.
Real quick, you don't seem too sold on Washington, do you?
Not really, because we really don't know what they are yet.
Yeah. I'm one of those who has watched them, and I think they are completely being undersold. I think they got a tough remaining schedule. If they get into this Final Four, I'm going to say watch out. Watch out for what they can do.
I like what they do rushing the passer. They average about 3 sacks a game. I love Browning. I love Peterson. I just want to see them finish the season out undefeated.
They have to do that, without question. Agree there.
They are the one. They would be the one that would be the most vulnerable as a one-loss conference champ.
Yes, they
to
would.
get taken out. I'm out of time. Booger, you're the best.
Thanks, Booger.
Terrific
Always
hour every
enjoy it.
week. Thank you so very much. We have a lot more to do here this morning, including Trent Dilfer on the way. We're talking football with him and more. Stick around. Mike and Mike.
Now with your American Express card, it's 2 times as splendid to shop small at local stores, because today is 2-day and you could earn 2 times your rewards. So now those Main Street beats and corner treats are 2 times as cool and 2 times as sweet. One-of-a-kind finds have 2 times the surprise, and hidden spots are 2 times the tops. There's always a special feeling when you shop small in your neighborhood. And now that it's 2-day, it feels 2 times as good.
Now through December 31st, you could earn 2 times your rewards when you shop small with an enrolled American Express card. Learn more and enroll at AmericanExpress.com. You will not earn 2 times rewards on any bonus you may already enjoy with your card. Prepaid and corporate cards, cards issued by other financial institutions, the Plum Card, and certain other cards are not eligible. Reward cap and other terms apply.
Learn more and enroll online today at AmericanExpress.com. Get out, get together, and shop small.
Scott Burnside, ESPN.com here on the latest edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We hear from Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers. Trevor Daley of the Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins stops by. And so does Charlie Coyle of the Minnesota Wild.
Ole Miss heads to College Station Saturday night to face Texas A&M.
Stiff arm, down he goes! Down he goes!
Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.